Welcome to the Autism in Black podcast, where we focus on all things autism and the Black parent experience. Our goal is to always educate, support, and empower parents to advocate for not only their children, but themselves. Hello, and welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I'm Maria Davis-Pierre, a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and America's #1 autism advocate for Black parents. I'm the founder and CEO of Autism in Black, Inc., where we aim to include the excluded. Today, we have Kwame and Nakia Stringfield, who are college sweethearts and have been happily married for over 25 years and have 3 daughters. Nakia and Kwame are passionate about families winning life. As special needs parents, they share their story to help others know a fulfilling life is possible no matter what. They rewired their mindset to see differently with love. Nakia shares her story through her book, Rewired Parenting, Changing Your Mindset for Your Special Needs Child. Today, we are talking with them about rewiring your parenting, rewiring your marriage. Nakia and Kwame were both speakers at the 3rd Annual Autism in Black Conference, and we are talking a little bit about what they spoke at the conference as well. You can check the show notes to get links to the conference replays, also to our Autism in Black membership, and as well as securing your ticket for next year's conference. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, and welcome back for another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. I am joined by a duo here, Nakia and Kwame Stringfield, who were speakers at the 3rd Annual Autism in Black Conference. I'm so happy to have you both here today.
It is great to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have introduced you guys. I have done your little bio, but what do you guys want us to know about you that I didn't read? Because you guys have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience.
So Maria, thank you for asking that question. So we are parents, we have been navigating this journey, learning, growing, and it's been an interesting journey for us. And so when we first started this journey, we were alone. We felt alone, isolated, like many other parents that's navigating this journey. But what we found was how to cling to each other and how to draw strength from our marriage through this journey. So that's part of what we shared at the Autism in Black conference this year.
Thank you. What about you, Kwame?
So one of the things that may have not been evident in the bio is that my wife and I, we're both electrical and computer engineers. We both have the same degrees at the bachelor's and master's level. And so our mindsets align around problem solving. And whether that is a problem in the sense of something that may be negative, or whether it's just a general challenge that's a problem that needs to be solved, we're very much problem solvers in how we operate. We're strategic in a lot of our endeavors and very intentional about our actions. And so when you look at me, one of my code names that I go by in the social media space is Mr. J. I'm Mr. Joy. I'm all those other things that have made this journey in our marriage relationship, as well as with these kids, very much fulfilling. My hobbies are weightlifting and drag racing, if that tells you anything kind of about the wild side. But it is, we're just happy to be here together.
Thank you. And you guys have been together or been married for 25 years. Me and my husband have been married for 15 years. And I, rarely get to talk to people in that space who are raising, children with disabilities, autistic children who have this longevity in their marriage. Why do you guys think it's important to talk about keeping the spark in your marriage? And how do you keep the spark in your marriage?
Yeah, I'll start with talking about the why. And Maria, when we were talking about the book that I wrote and the importance of rewiring your mindset as a parent to be able to be what you need to be for your family and your children. What was so ironic was my husband was helping me, and people would come up and say, "Wow, you're married. You're married." How, and they would ask us questions about it. And then when I really started diving into it, I realized that 80% of marriages that are faced, that have an autistic child end up in divorce.
Mhm.
And so to me, it's very important that we talk about it, because, what we found is that it's been a source of strength to keep our marriage flowing versus a source of stress and aggravation and in divorce. So, we want to share the message that it is possible to have a whole family and be able to keep the marriage alive. And I'll let Kwame talk about some of the ways that we move forward in that space.
So Maria, what I would say in response to that from a male perspective, um, and as a husband, both a male and a husband in this conversation. So I married her. I didn't marry the kids. So our relationship, our family, our bond began with us together. Children are a fruit of that. So we just celebrated 26 years actually. So in May, so when the conference ended, right that next month here in May, we just celebrated our 26th anniversary. And so for the first 8 years of our marriage to this point, we intentionally waited to have children
Mm.
because we were endeavoring on careers, doing things, growing together, building our lives together. Because before we brought a child into this world, we wanted to make sure as best we could that we were aligned as well as we had things aligned to support the associated costs that go along with that, as well as the responsibilities. So it was very much a bonding for us, doing us, um, growing together. As I said, it's about her. She is the priority in this relationship. I'm her priority in this relationship. And we always take that time to make sure that we're united in whatever it is we're faced with, and that we do it together. And the kids get the benefit of that as being a part of the family holistically.
I love that you say that you guys have a similar kind of setup that, me and Dr. Barry have. We got married and we intentionally waited 4 years into our marriage because he was finishing med school and doing residency before we even had our first daughter. And I think because our daughter was diagnosed so early, all we knew was parenting from an autism perspective. And I think that that also helped us out with our longevity and being able to, keep our marriage together. Because, like you said, Nakia, 80% of marriages end in divorce when the child is autistic or has a disability. And there's a lot of lack of communication that, parents have with each other. I'm a therapist, I do a lot of co-parenting sessions with parents who cannot get on the same page. How do you two stay on the same page when navigating, the autism journey for your children? How do you deal with the differences, if there are any differences or different perspectives?
Absolutely. I mean, it was our daughter was 8 years old before we got a diagnosis of autism. So there was 8 years here where we didn't know but we knew something was different. Well, I knew something was different. It was a while before he really identified that something was different. But we were navigating that. And so that bond of our commitment, reminding ourselves of the commitment of why we got married was very, very key, so that we understood that we can't think ill intent is happening when one person is disagreeing with how something that's happening with the child or misinterpreting something. But what happened was, and I would love for Kwame to also jump in here. Um,
Mhm.
I actually, I actually started this education journey and awareness journey of understanding and of seeking, being curious about what was happening, seeking answers, and it eventually led to a sensory processing disorder diagnosis. And then 4 years after that diagnosis, it led to an autism diagnosis. But it was a very, very interesting journey because we were, we navigated challenging behaviors at school, at, home, in the community, at church. And so, we were dealing with some tough stuff where we were getting phone calls at one point every day from teachers and stuff. And so how do you as a married couple take that input and come to the decision of what needs to happen? So there was a give and take and open-mindedness that we both had to have on how to do things, whether it was from discipline to just whether or not we needed to go to this family event or not. So it was a lot of empathy and compassion that we had to have for each other, that was foundational on how we show up for the child.
Mhm.
And what I would add to that is it begins with, so Maria, I signed up for all of this. I signed up for her and our relationship. I signed up for the marriage. I signed up for being a parent if we were blessed to be able to have kids. In the sheer essence of the vows, the traditional vows that go with marriage, I signed up for all of that. And so as we cultivated our relationship and began to know each other, I came to know the essence, the core of who she is. And
Mhm.
so while I don't agree with you in all instances, I trust you. And that's a pivotal part of our relationship as a couple. It's based fundamentally on trust. Even if I'm operating in ignorance, because when we didn't have a diagnosis and I didn't know and didn't understand everything, and I know how I was raised traditionally and all the other stuff that went along with that, and things weren't looking the same, weren't working the same. So while I'm dealing with denial, I still trusted her. She was
Mhm.
doing the research. She was bringing the data. Again, engineering mind says the data speaks for itself. You can't deny, what's been recorded. And the definition of insanity is to, do the same thing and expect a different result. So if I'm doing the same thing and I'm not seeing the different result or the desired outcome, and there's data supporting why I'm not getting that, then you have to bring all that together. And so fundamentally, while we were going through that journey, I always trusted her. She said, we don't assume ill intent, even when emotions are coming out and folks are expressing disagreement. We don't go into argument, which we view as being more the next level of detriment in a relationship, generating all the other types of feelings. We kind of use the speaker listener technique in that, okay, this is what you said to me. This is what I interpreted it to be. Is that what you meant? And that always gives us the chance to go back and reconcile to say, well, no, you don't need to go down that path in your mind because that really wasn't what I was trying to say. And so keeping conflict to a minimum, it will come, but knowing how to squash it quickly has been a key component of how we keep ourselves aligned and keep a lot of the other let's say rabbit trails that you could go down in a relationship, keeping those behind us.
Wow. Have you two had couples counseling?
So I'll take that one. So so the short answer to that is yes and no.
Okay.
So we haven't gone and had formal couples counseling, but we were members of a church where the pastor and his wife, they taught together and taught all these principles,
Mhm.
that some of the principles that we're talking about now and that we've learned for over 20 years. And so it was basically one or two Sundays, and then we would have marriage retreats and different things that they would do over the years. And couples would just come together and just lay it on the line and talk very plain about all subjects. And when I say all subjects, I mean all subjects.
Mhm.
And so that was really pivotal for us. And then there was a spiritual component that they would obviously add from a faith-based perspective that was beneficial to that, in addition to the practical talking just about relationships.
I ask because as a clinician, you guys really have a solid foundation on how you handle disagreements, knowing that they will come, not getting trapped in a lot of what I call you know, I'm not going to say what's wrong with me. You should know what's wrong with me. You should, getting in your head and having everything in your head and expecting your partner to be a mind reader. And it seems like you guys have a solid basis for communication and handling disagreements. You guys are like the ideal uh, therapy couple that therapists love to do. So I would have loved to have many couples like you willing when I was practicing.
We
All
take
right.
that compliment. So,
Yes.
so one of the other things I want to do is just bring home a real example. So for example, if grandma gave our daughter who is autistic a nice dress that had material that made her itchy and that was uncomfortable, Kwame said, I want her to wear it, or let her wear it to the event so grandma can see the dress. But I'm observing her. We didn't have necessarily a diagnosis. I know this material is causing her to be irritated. This material is frustrating her. And we would just come to term. We would talk about it, but then we would say he would understand what I was saying and see it, and we would agree that okay, she won't wear that. She'll wear her cotton dress, that's very big and comfortable for her, so that she can enjoy the family outing. So those are the types of things that I know, from our experience and from seeing other couples that I know can seem small, but can turn into a big situation that leads to a wedge in the family and in the marriage.
Yeah, because the other side of that is, so the grandma that bought that dress wants to see it on the child, but may
Mhm.
not understand it. So then that's going to spawn a conversation at some point where the grandma's going to say, is she ever going to wear that dress?
Yeah.
And that's where I, in a lot of instances, would take on those tough conversations when family didn't understand why things were going on, or why things had to be a certain way, and just talk them through it and come to the realization. And if they had a problem with it, then they had a problem with me. And that's just how life is. Sometimes people have problems with you, but ultimately this family, we have to protect. We have to curate an environment that will allow that child to thrive, even when others external to that environment don't understand why. And that's the principle we live on. I used to have a pastor that would say, people are going to talk about you until Jesus comes. And so that's just life. People are going to talk, even in your family. But ultimately, we have to do what works for us, for our small united unit, I'll call it, to thrive. And folks come around ultimately and understand.
Mhm. So Kwame, do you talk to both sides of the family if there's a problem, or just your side of the family?
So remember, weightlifting and drag racing.
Mhm.
Anybody that wants to have a conversation can have it with me. I don't care, whoever it is, come on, bring it. I'm ready. Let's talk. And it literally, this past Mother's Day, our child with diagnosis now with the diagnosis of autism is actually 12.
Mhm.
And
I think you
so
meant Memorial Day,
I'm sorry, whatever. What did I say?
Mother's Day.
Oh yeah, Mother's Day is coming up. So this was Easter. You're wrong too. See?
Oh.
It was Easter. So this past Easter, we were, and y'all don't have to cut that because that was cool. So this past Easter, when we went to my grandmother's house, she's 94. And so my grandmother's house, it's small. There's probably enough room for 20, 15, maybe 20 people in there at most. And we try to fit 40 in there at times. And so, she can't deal with that type of close quarter environment and all the other dynamics, the noise levels. and all the interactions that go on in that space. And so we're a family. We talk loud, all that good stuff. And so I let her stay in our vehicle for a period. I went in, engaged, brought her other sisters around. And then I told my mom, I said, look, I want to bring her in. I'm going to bring her in so she can see her grandmom, give her a hug and engage a little bit. And then she's going to go back out. And so I brought her in and she went, she did her thing, engaged, said hello, hugged her grandma, just did the things. And when I took her back out, one of my uncles came and said, hey, we're the type of family that, we talk, we lie, we engage, we do all that kind of stuff. And if that's not her MO, man, then she might be, this might be the wrong family for her. And he chuckled when he says it, because in that side of the family, they use humor a lot of times when they say stuff as a part of their way of engaging to better understand. And so I explained to him, I said, hey, she, this is what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And she can't take this kind of environment. And he said, oh, wow. And so I talked him through it a little more and explained. But those type situations, again, I don't assume the person has ill intent when they're coming to me with that. I don't get all emotional and all the other things, and not using emotion in a negative sense, but I exhibit the self-control to say, okay, you just were like I was initially. I was ignorant. I didn't know. So let me educate you and talk you through it in a curious fashion.
I love that. You and I are very similar, Kwame. I'm the one that handles the talks in our family. My husband has a very gentle approach, and sometimes I'm like, it's not cutting it. We need to be cut and dry, and let's get to the point here with setting the boundaries. So you and I have a similar mindset in that. Dr. Berry, as he has said many times, he doesn't take anything seriously. So I think a lot of times in his communication with his family, they're like, okay, you're joking. So I have to come in and be that serious one and lay down the law, which, works for our marriage. So I appreciate you sharing that different side. Now, Nakia, you mentioned slightly your book, but you didn't tell us the title. You didn't tell us about the book. So can you tell us about your book?
Absolutely. So in this journey, I realized how important it was to rewire my mindset, that it wasn't anything wrong with my child, wasn't anything wrong with me, that I needed a different perspective. And that perspective was going to be necessary for me to help my family to win and create the environment necessary for my child to thrive. And so the book title is Rewired Parenting, Changing Your Mindset for Your Special Needs Child. It's available on Amazon. You can also reach out to me directly to purchase. And one of the things that I have in this book is keys on how you also evaluate environments for your child, leveraging a principle of love to really be that foundation of how do you make sure if your family environment, the school environment, the community, church, wherever you're going, is an environment conducive to support you and your family, but more importantly, your child to grow.
Yeah. And if I could say just one thing about that love principle that's in that book, it's something that we found to be key in our relationship as well. So in love and that principle, it's an acronym. The L stands for level up, the O stands for order, the V stands for vulnerability, and the E is for empathy. And in the context of my wife's book on parenting, on Rewired Parenting, the environment you're looking at for your child as you're assessing it, does it have the capability to level up or rise to the level that your child needs in order to thrive and be successful? Does that environment have order in how they execute and do things, conduct processes and systems? Is there the vulnerability in that environment, in that they understand the dynamics of this type of child, what type of flexibility, what type of accommodations may need to be made, that in some instances they don't even know, may not even have the systems or processes in place at that point, but do they have that ability to execute it, or do they have them in place? And most of all, can they be empathetic to the journey that your child is on and that you're on, as we navigate this space? And in keeping the spark in our marriage as we're talking, what we found is that that principle also holds true in our relationship as a couple, as a married couple. Am I willing to address the needs of my wife and make the accommodations that are needed to support her success and to support her to thrive? Am I willing to level up and discount anything that may be preventing that in our relationship? Am I willing to rise to the challenge, to the occasion, to support her, give her what she needs? Do we have order in our relationship and how we operate, conduct systems of processes with each other, how we communicate, how we interact, how we engage with each other? Are those things being done in order? Is there decency there? Am I vulnerable? Am I willing to be flexible with her? Am I willing to accommodate? Am I willing to share and do all of that in the spirit of being empathetic to who she is as an individual, who I am as an individual? Can we put ourselves in each other's shoes and understand on that level of unity? So that love principle, it holds true in a lot of things that we do, both in maintaining our spark as well as keeping environments and our children in alignment.
So Maria, you see, he was inspired by my book. And so Kwame is now working on a book about the marriage concept and how that principle works in marriage. So, he's definitely that is principles that we live by, but now he's embraced it in terms of how to be able to explain, what we're doing in our marriage to really help us bond together.
Marriage Rewired, it's coming. The sister book to Rewired Parenting.
Yes, and please keep us updated on that date. And Nakia and Kwame, as I said, were speakers at our conference, and they did a deep dive into these principles. So if you are wanting more of that, you can always purchase the replays, and though that link is in our show notes. Now, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, those who are married, who may be struggling with communication? Even these principles work with co-parenting as well. So is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with? Nakia, I'll let you go first.
Yes. And you're right. These principles do work for co-parenting. I will say, though, that we do have a marriage master plan workshop. We do these regularly. It's about aligning your hearts and aligning your lives. Please click on our link tree to get on the wait list for that, or send us an email at info@cbeyondconsulting.com.
And we'll have that in our show notes.
And what I would say, Maria, is just a statement concerning this journey that you're on in your relationship and as a parent of an autistic child. Embrace joy in the moment of every moment.
Mm.
Because even in the midst of painful situations or challenging things, it's still a joy to be able to endure and to go through that and come out on the other side. It is a journey that you're on, and maintaining joy in it is just it's paramount.
I love that. Kwame, you need to be a motivational speaker because you are out here just uplifting the masses. So I love that.
Well, thank you.
And where can we find you all? Like, if I know you gave your email, but if people want to connect, how can they find you? Are you on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, website? Where can we find you?
Yes, we are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. Our website will be at the bottom of the notes, www.cbeyondconsulting.com. And we also do free Clubhouse sessions on Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. So please look us up. Marriage Rewired is the group.
On Clubhouse, the group is Marriage Rewired. On Facebook, it's Rewired Parenting is the site I believe you've got established there, Nakia.
Yes.
And those are the two primary points, in addition to the link tree that she's established.
Perfect. And those of you listening, you're probably listening to this on a Friday since we release on Friday. So check out their Clubhouse tonight, and you will be able to get some more of them and enjoy. So thank you two for being guests on the Autism in Black podcast, and thank you for being speakers at the conference.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. It was really awesome.
And we're looking forward to being a part of the community. So thank you, Maria.
Yes, and you guys can also learn about our community by clicking the link in the show notes. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can always be notified when a new episode drops. To get the resources shared on today's podcast and the show notes, make sure to go to autisminblack.org/podcast. And be sure to share your takeaways from the show on IG stories and Twitter using our official hashtag AIBpod so that we can find them and share them. And if you want to continue the conversation from today's episode, make sure to join our Autism in Black podcast Facebook community. And please make sure to answer the questions to gain entry. Thank you for listening and joining me this week. Have a good one.